Welcome to Friction Zona motorcycle content YouTube channel and podcast. Now, I'm going to talk about the best motorcycles to start off with when you first get your motorcycle license and you want to learn how to ride a motorcycle. I would suggest starting with anything, and most experts, I'm not an expert at all, but from what I've read and seen, 500cc seems to be the maximum, especially with modern motorcycles. So you want something as low as a 125 you have to, but probably 250 to 400 cc's. And this is where I would go if you feel comfortable. Chances are on your MSF course you run a 250 or so. So I'll start off with those. If you want to save some money and really want to go small and a little bit slower, but a great learning device, I would suggest a Rebel 250, Nighthawk 250, V-Star 250. So that'd be a Honda Nighthawk, a Honda Rebel, a Yamaha V-Star 250, and I think Suzuki makes one similar to that. Any of the big four Japanese little cruisers or standard bikes would be excellent. Especially just starting off, maybe the first 6 months or so, just so you know how to ride. You're not going to take them on the freeways, but they're small, light, cheap, reliable. And you want reliability because you want to be able to practice. You don't want the thing to shut down or have to bring them to the shop all the time. So that'd be the bare bones beginner bikes, maybe even a Grom. But I think the size isn't really realistic. So different. I've never ridden one, but I think it's not the same thing as a real motorcycle, size-wise. And the Rebel's probably pushing it too because that's very small. But if you have a little bit more money and it maybe a little more comfort level, if you want to stay in a Honda, you get the 300s, the 300 singles. They have a CBR 300. They have a standard version of the sport bike. They have a Rebel 300. And they're single cylinder, so they'll be a little bit torquey and maybe a little bit vibrational. But, Honda builds great motorcycles. And the power won't scare you, and you'll learn a lot. So you can't really go wrong, especially if you just want to learn. It's not a bike you probably want to keep for 5 years, but to learn, it's perfect. Now, going on from there, I would say if you want a little more speed, a little more excitement, the more modern Kawasaki and Yamahas. So first, Yamaha has the R3, Yamaha R3, which is a great bike. It looks like a sport bike, and it kind of is, but it's not that powerful, but it's still fun. You're probably high 30s horsepower, maybe 40. Great learning device, again. The handlebars, depending on what year model, some are a little more sloped over, a little more like a Super Sport, and some a little more upright. But that's been excellent, especially when you're in the sport bikes or quicker bikes. That's always been a mainstay, great quality, perfect learning tool. That was like the go-to bike for many years and still is a very good one. They also have the MT-03, same engine, basically transmission, everything the same, except the handlebars are upright, the styling's totally different. But the engine, the basic riding, as far as the beginner goes, it's probably maybe even a little bit easier to ride, maybe because you're more upright, and possibly a little bit cheaper. The looks are probably not as good, but you can't go wrong. If you're trying to learn, looks aren't the most important thing, I don't think, especially if you're not going to keep it very long. But you can't, MT-03, R3, there you go, can't go wrong. Now, Kawasaki, they kind of upped the ante a little bit. They have a Ninja 400, so it's actually 399 cc's. So it's probably pushing the envelope as far as beginner bikes. It looks good. Some would say not as good as the R3, but it's a good, great looking bike. Has about 45 horsepower. It has you can get it with ABS, and it has good solid brakes. It'll do 0 to 60 in low 4 seconds. I think the R3 is more like 5 flat, maybe. Now the Kawasaki Z400 is kind of like the MT-03. So the Z400 is a Ninja 400 with the fairings taken off, basically, and a different handlebar. It has like a straight up, more or less straight handlebars, and are up a couple inches. So it feels a little more comfortable that's the one I actually own, a Z400, and it's much more comfortable for me not much more, a little more comfortable than the Ninja. The Ninja's, you're a little bit hunched over, just slightly. But both the R3 and the Ninja look like real sport bikes, but they're a little more upright, friendly. So you can ride them around for hours. I can ride my Z400 for all day long. As long as the seat's a little firm. So every hour or so you kind of want to get off the bike, but your back's not hurting. It's more just a stiff seat. So a lot of people tell you, that all these are little bikes. They're fast. The modern engines in these things, they're only 400 cc's or 320 cc's, but they're pretty high strung and they'll fly. So they're quicker than a lot of the 750, 900 cruisers. So it's not all about cc's, especially these days. But you want to probably keep a beginner bike should not be over probably 50 horsepower. Generally speaking, because that's kind of how a lot of European countries do that, or I think Great Britain. I think the most you can have is like 48 horsepower until you get more experience, and that's probably right on the money, because they're fast enough where you're having tons of fun, but you're not breaking the speed limit every time you're more like a fast car, but not like a crazy fast motorcycle. So you can kind of stay in the speed limit, and you have more reaction time. You're not going to get thrown off the back of the motorcycle. You're not going to wheelie by accident. You can wheelie some of these bikes, but you're not going to do it unintentionally. So it's much safer all around. And you want to learn. You want to have fun. You can always get something bigger and faster down the road. You have something look forward to. Meanwhile, you get really comfortable on a bike, and you'd be surprised what these things can do. If you haven't ridden a motorcycle before, and you can go 0 to 60 in 4 seconds and change, how much faster do you really need? And meanwhile, you're learning a lot, and the bike's lighter. You can maneuver it very easily. You're not. It's cheaper to fix, cheaper to maintain. They're really basic machines. Not a lot of things can go wrong on these Japanese bikes, the entry level ones. So do yourself a favor, if you're going to get a motorcycle, get something like that. I would not go with 600s at all. Even the 650s, I think it's too much. I've never ridden one, but the horsepower is way too high, and the torque. Unless you've ridden, maybe you had a history of you rode in the past. You already had a 300 10 years ago, where you rode dirt bikes competitively when you're a teenager or something. I don't know, but I don't see an advantage. You can always get one later, and you can buy a used, Ninja 300 or Ninja 250 or these smaller ones, just to learn how to ride, and then they hold the value pretty well, so you can just probably get most of your money back, and then invest in something you really think you need, like a 600 or 750 or whatever it is. That should be the next step. So the first step, learn. I always think it's kind of like how at least the Air Force used to train pilots. Sometimes you start off on a propeller plane, and then a small jet that's subsonic, and then a supersonic jet, and then bigger jets or faster jets. They don't just stick everybody in state-of-the-art jets first day of flight school. It's a progression. And even that MotoGP guy, I think most of them start off in little tiny 125s, 250s, and they just gradually, they learn all the skills, and they keep getting bigger and bigger CCs because they can handle it. It just makes logical sense not to start off at the bottom, work your way up, instead of starting in the middle and scaring the hell out of yourself and quitting, which a lot of people do, or crashing. So this is my opinion. You can totally ignore it, obviously, but I would seriously consider, if you're between two bikes, get the smaller one or lower CCs. You'll be plenty happy. You can go 100 miles an hour or 80 miles an hour. You go 0 to 60, and maybe not. Some of them are kind of slow, like the Rebel 250. But if you get like a Ninja or a Yamaha, you're going to be going plenty fast. An R3 or any Ninja or MT-03, Z400, even the CBR 300, I think it's probably plenty fast enough. Okay, that's all I have. Good luck on your bike search.